Julia from Julia Teaching Resources, and I'm here talking to Melissa Angstadt, who has a store on TPT called Musical Interactions, and she's another long-term member of the music crew. Hi, Melissa, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you. So, my first question to you, my dear, is can you tell us a little bit about your journey into music education?
Sure. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a music teacher. I grew up with my grandmother who was a choir director. And so I never got to have her as my teacher, but um, she had retired. But like growing up in that family where, you'd go to visit and there was always music playing and she started me on the piano. Um, and then you would find friends that had her and they'd talk to you about class and it just seemed so magical and I wanted to be part of that.
Yeah.
So I joined band as early as I could and then I added in jazz band and orchestra and I joined the choir and I did everything I could just to try it all out. And uh, as an undergraduate, I couldn't get into the music ed department because it didn't exist.
Oh,
My school had said that they had it and they didn't. So I ended up with a music history and literature degree.
oh,
And then the year I was graduating, that's when they said, oh, by the way, starting in the fall, we get the ed part. And so if you wanted to stay an extra year, we could give you ed. And I was like, no, like I already have a degree. So then I went and got my master's in music education and I just loved it. I student taught band and then ended up teaching kindergarten through eighth grade general music for 8 years. And then last year I had a lovely time as a long-term sub for middle school and high school band. And it's been a blessing.
yeah, yep. And I said I've talked to Chrissy and Elizabeth so far, and it seems we all have a very common thing where there's someone in our family who inspires us to be, to pursue music and then obviously go further with it. So, yeah, that sounds good. So, obviously you've just talked about what inspired you to become a music teacher. Excuse me, but what's your actual main instrument? And did it choose you or did you choose
Uh,
it?
ooh, I started on clarinet in fourth grade and it was not really what I wanted. I wanted to play the oboe, and they
Oh.
told me they would not start anybody on the oboe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, so then he said, "Well, what would you like to play instead?" And I said, "How about drums?" And my mom was like, "No." So, so the band director suggested moving and trying clarinet and then switching to oboe and they never let me switch. So I was
Oh,
on clarinet forever. It was fine. It worked out. In graduate school, I was fortunate enough to be in a band that had so many clarinets and no double reeds at all that finally I got to move to the bassoon.
oh, right. Okay, because I was wondering where you were going to go there. It's like, which double reed are you going to talk about?
No, no, never
Oh,
got to play the oboe in a group, but it's okay. It's
okay.
really like it was fun.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So bassoon. Oh, wow. Yeah. As I really take my hat off to anyone who does a double reed because that, yeah, can't do it. I can't do it. I can play a very, very bad clarinet. And and I say very bad. I have one. I make a sound on it to just show you seven what it sounds like, and that's about it. So,
Well, a lot of people are like oh, I don't even like the sound of it. I've always
yeah,
loved the sound of an oboe.
yeah,
So, the bassoon was a close second, I guess.
yeah,
I also love the recorder though. So,
yeah,
like I
yeah.
must be like a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, because oboe is certainly a unique sound. It's a very unique sound. I had a student a couple of years ago. He's actually now studying in the States from went from Australia over, and it was around the pandemic. I'm not sure if it was 2020 or 2021. I can't remember. But we'd started the school year, and he came to school, and he was really keen. I said, "Okay, Jean, what's your instrument?" He said, "French horn." I went, "What? What kid plays French horn?" And he said,
I
"No, I
I
started."
mean,
he started on trumpet, and his teacher said, "No, you have the perfect embouchure for French horn." So went to it, and I said he's now studying in the States, with French
That's
horns. So
awesome.
yeah,
My
so
daughter went to do her first year of band last year and went to like the instrument tryouts, and she said, "I'd like to try a French horn." And they said, "We don't start people on French
yeah,
horn."
yeah.
So she ended up on clarinet too, which is
Oh,
great. But the French horn was, if I had to play brass, that's what I would play.
yeah. Again, I think it's just got such a beautiful sound, hasn't it? It's that, yeah, it's something nice. Um, anyway, so how long have you actually been teaching music then?
So I taught for 8 years, and then I took a break to raise my kids.
Yeah,
And they're in school with enough independence that I didn't feel like I needed to be a room mom or a
yeah,
parent helper or anything. So I started subbing right before the pandemic. And when that shut everything down, I was like, yeah, I guess I'll be a mom some more.
yeah, yeah,
And so then this past spring was my first time back full time, but as a long-term sub.
yeah,
And I was nervous. And the first few weeks, I think the kids could tell.
yeah,
They were nervous because I was nervous. And then by the end of the year, they were asking, well, would you be able to stay?
yeah,
And so
yeah.
it was a great experience. And you know, I always wanted to teach band, but I never knew if I had the chops for it. And this year it was just so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad that you got that experience. So yes, it's fun. It's again, I think as women, we take our music teaching journey takes a few detours depending on our children. Because for me, I did my degree, and my intention was, because I couldn't do it as a degree and education at the same time, I had to do them separately. But I had my son in my final year, so he was not quite planned. That was 33 years ago. So until Kate, my daughter, after she started school, that's when I went back and did my education. So I've been um, yeah, teaching since 2001. So, but I was 30. So when I started teaching,
Yeah.
so I had the advantage that I'd already had my kids, so I didn't have to stop, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, we all have that thing. So, you were just talking about that you've actually done the last 6 months or so, you did older groups, but what were you teaching in those first 8 years? What age group?
I had, oh, so many things. I had kindergarten through eighth grade, off and on, depending on the school.
Right,
So my first year I had kindergarten through eighth grade in two different buildings, general music, and I was on a cart for one building, but in a room in another. But it was a community that had absolutely no supplies.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah,
I brought my own radio to use. I made instruments to use, which is what my conference session is going to be about.
yep,
Um, I've done so much. And so then I had moved to another school where I was only kindergarten through fifth grade, but they wanted an after school choir.
right.
So then I added choir. And then in another school, I had bounced back to kindergarten through third grade. And then at the last school that I taught at, I had kindergarten. So it was weird. My job title was kindergarten through eighth grade, but really I taught kindergarten, third grade, fifth through eighth grade general music. I had a gifted and learning
All right,
program, and then I had a seventh and eighth grade Orff percussion ensemble. One year I taught after school elementary and middle school choirs. And then one year I was assigned to co-teach third, fourth, and fifth grade science and social studies from a music perspective.
I shouldn't laugh, but oh my goodness. What are these people doing to us? Oh my,
And
I've got
that was
nothing.
actually a lot of that was a challenge and fun because I was supposed to rotate between each grade level and subject one day at a time. So Monday I might be third grade science, Tuesday fourth grade science, Wednesday fifth grade science, and then back to third grade social studies and rotate. And some of the classroom teachers liked having me there, and some of them would have rather I never stepped foot in their room. And so after a couple months, I went to the admin and said, could I just skip these certain people because they clearly don't need me?
Yeah.
And so I mostly focused on the social studies side because as a music
Yeah.
history major,
Yeah.
like I link things back
Yes.
to the historical things.
Yes.
Um, and I had so much fun, and it was challenging because I had to work with the classroom teacher on their topics.
Yep.
And so they would come to me and say, what do you know about Pocahontas? And I would look at them and say, I don't know, but we can make a song.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Yes.
and then at the end of the year, the one teacher, she she really struggled with social studies to begin with, but she said, "Do you know anything about the American Civil War?" And I said, "Please let me teach this unit. Let me do it. I'll do it." I like I grew up close to a battlefield, and so
Right.
I had pictures from that battlefield. My family's always been a bunch of history nerds, so we
Yep.
traveled and seen these different sites. And so she was like, no, I can't let you do that. I was like, no, please.
Please.
And so we looked and we analyzed song lyrics. We looked
Yep.
at how music sort of portrayed what was happening,
Yep.
what the use of, and so it my point was like I took it from the perspective of what helped music or what did
Yeah.
music do
Yep.
versus the hardcore like let's learn dates and places.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Makes so much
so I mean
sense.
I enjoyed it. It's not for everybody.
No. No.
It
And I get
definitely
that.
was not for everybody.
No. But as you say, I my kids when I'm teaching, because I'm grade 7 to 12, and I always link back to whatever, like something that's actually happening in history. And they go, "We're not doing history, miss." I said, "Yeah, but you got to understand what's sort of happening in the world because it influences what was happening for music. Because
Yeah.
music is reflecting, like it reflects what is happening in society so much. So, yeah, okay. So again,
Well, and
yeah,
even teaching like the kindergarten through eighth grade general music classes, so often they'd say, why are we learning more history in music class than in history class? And I would say, because that's why music sounds the way it does, and that's it just it's connected.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what would be your favorite part about teaching music then?
I mean, I think I just really love the community that it brings. It's like you can teach it in the vacuum of like let's learn reading, let's learn writing, but really, there's so much just to teach about like how to be a good person, how to be in the
Mhm.
ensemble, how to um identify your own strengths and weaknesses and bring those to the benefit of the group. um it just the humanity of it,
Yeah,
and I feel like that's really why I get drawn to the history side too,
yep.
because it does reflect like the humanity in the events that we study, the music that we study, the performances that we do.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. It does so much. I have had a very big week. It's end of term. I said goodbye to term 2 yesterday. Thank goodness I've had enough. But we had our parent teacher interviews. I think you call them conferences, and so many of like we always get a lot of year 7 parents because they want to know how their kids are going in high school because that's high school for us 7 to 12. And so many of them, I just say, look, I just want your child to enjoy the experience, have a go. We might find amazing musicians, we may not, but in the big scheme of things, all we want is our kids to be happy and to be good humans. And if I can help them along the way, I'm happy with that. And they're going, yeah, yeah. And it's like, yep, it's all we want. So, yeah. So I think, as you say, it's all
Well,
those
and
things.
that's the reality.
Yeah.
Most of our kids aren't going to be going on to like
No.
professional musicianship things. So, your goals need to be like, how can they be a good person and help society reflect that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like I'm a realist and like it's the same deal. We wouldn't want everybody to be a 100-meter runner. We wouldn't want everyone to be a, oh, I don't know, a chef. Because then who's going to be the customer? So yeah, anyway, I get it. I get it. Totally get it. So can you describe your main teaching approach with when you were teaching? Well, actually, let's just firstly ask, what's your most favorite grade to teach? Because you've done a lot. So what would you say is your favorite
Oh,
grade?
that's like picking your favorite child. It really depends on the year. There are some years that it's like the kindergartners are just my babies. And then
Yeah,
there are other years that like I love my fifth grade or I love my
yeah,
eighth grade. It was never a consistent thing. Like this last year, my juniors, I felt so bad at the end of the year. I was like, I don't want to say goodbye because
yeah,
I'm a sub, so I'm not coming back in the fall, but
yeah.
like I don't want to say goodbye.
Yeah, 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 and it's hard. So, well, what is your favorite approach to teaching your actual main instrument? I mean, you've got a few there. So, if you were going to start with a kid and teaching them clarinet from the first time, how would you actually approach it?
I mean, I first just want them to enjoy it. Like, I mean, first you have to learn how to put it together because so many people, I mean, whew. And you
Yeah.
look at all the stock photos of people playing instruments and you're like, that's not how that goes. Like, that's
Oh, they're
not
holding
how
it
that
really
looks at
weird.
all. But just, let's start with just playing the mouthpiece and can you make a sound and how can I help you make that sound so it's easier?
Yeah,
And then I don't worry so much about the notation right away
yeah,
and memorizing the fingerings because that'll come.
yeah,
But if you're struggling just to get the basic sounds,
yeah,
you're going to be miserable.
yeah,
So mouthpiece things. I like to make duck calls, and teach them that, when you lengthen the tube, it's gonna get a little lower. So we like practice by like closing the hand and then opening the
yeah,
fingers
yeah,
and just hearing how that changes and you like adjusting the embouchure to
yeah,
see like what happens when we
yeah,
tighten our cheeks
yeah, yeah,
and then the easiest ones to get out typically are the throat tones. So your open notes and then adding one or two fingers and kind of the similar approach with recorder.
yep, yep,
You want to start kind of slowly. Um, but I try to let them also do some of their own um creativity. Like, let's not worry about reading the notation, but how would you want it to sound?
yeah,
If you put this down, what rhythm would you play?
yeah,
How would you go up and down the thing? I remember when I started, the first thing I did was, once I could make a sound, I just wiggled my fingers. It didn't matter if they were notes or not. And exactly. And my parents were like, "What are you doing?" And I was so young and I didn't know better. And I said, "Well, I'm playing jazz." Like it just
We probably were.
and I mean, they weren't real notes, but it didn't matter because I was having fun.
Oh, darling, you just remind me. I've got a year 10 student at the moment. My literally their last assessment, which I've yet to mark, it's in my bag. I've brought it home. Was a jazz composition, and they could choose a couple of ways to go. So one way they could actually get a jazz standard and obviously arrange it for a few instruments, or they could get another song they know and make it jazz. So this kid
Oh, fun.
yeah, so my year 10 boys, I mean, if I get a chance, I don't think I've got it with me. They were amazing. Oh, amazing. But that's the whole other story. They took I think death metal. Sorry, a jazz song made death metal was fantastic. Anyway, but this girl, she's so on the spectrum, and she was trying to do an arrangement of Ode to Joy. So I'm like, okay, if you want to do that, go for it. I don't mind. Um, she was reading the chord windows for the guitar, like, and she doesn't normally play guitar, so she decided she was going to do that. I said, okay, no worries. And she was reading the chord windows all wrong, and I'm going, sweetie, that's not even a chord. And she's going, yes, it is. No, it's not. And she wanted me to accompany, like, she said, I want you to play this part. I said, darling, unless you're playing an actual chord, I can't. I don't know what you're playing. And she goes, well, I'm improvising. Yes, you are. You're doing it solo. Wonderful. Off you go.
Yep, absolutely.
I had no idea what she was playing.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, darling, that you've done the task. I don't care. Okay. Ah, Anyway, the things we do. So what are some of the challenges students face? I think we've sort of talked about when learning your instrument and how do you help them overcome. So you've talked about like, just getting them to actually enjoy the instrument. How do you then obviously then maybe move them onto like playing Mary Had a Little Lamb for a start? I don't know.
I mean, so that goes hand in hand with like reading and or ear training, and I try to do a little bit of both.
Yep.
I'll play along with them. A lot of the time it might be me helping them move their fingers to like cover the holes, because that is a big problem
Yeah.
with the clarinet.
Yeah.
Some of the beginning clarinetist fingers are just so tiny,
Yes.
and like, and I have to go to them and I'm like, okay, so your finger is just slipping off the hole, so let's
Yeah.
try this. And so I'm like smushing their finger on the hole, and I mean that is the struggle.
Yep.
um and so we do a lot of that. We do a lot of just like slurring the notes
Mm-hmm.
between, seeing if we can walk our fingers around. But on top of that, like reading the notation when it comes down to like a method book, it's really hard if they aren't getting like some sort of reading comprehension
Yep.
earlier.
Yep.
And so part of the band world is like, if you're not reading it, you've got to teach it along.
Yep.
Um, and so this is where I kind of got to have a little more fun and get back in my comfort zone of 8 years of general music.
Yep. Yep.
I brought in all kinds of different card games and
Yes.
activities, and we played spelling games with the treble clef,
Yep.
and show me, I felt like a game show host at one point, where I'd like hold up the notation and I'd say, show me G,
Yeah.
and I'd want them to like show their fingering and just like
Yes.
hold their, it's this.
Yes. Yep.
um
Yep.
because the connection of like, okay, well, if the note's written here, it's this letter and it's this fingering.
Yes.
That was hard.
Yeah.
And I had several flutists especially that I would go up to them and say, you've got the rhythm because you're listening to me clap the rhythm repeatedly, but you're not moving your fingers." And they said, "We know." I said, "Why aren't we moving our fingers? Like, can I help? Can I show you where they are?" And they said, "It's hard." And I said, "I know. It's not going to get easier as we add more notes." Like, like learn the three that we know, so that number four comes along, you're not going, "Oh, dang." Like,
Oh, you reminded me again, a colleague, we did a musical couple, again, I don't know how long ago now. Um, Pandemic, it's confused my brain. But there was one boy who said he could play trumpet. And so my colleague said, no worries, because we don't do band like you guys do. And she was like so excited to get, in the rock, like we got these kids on rock instruments, and this kid was going to play trumpet. And so she wrote parts for him, and she come back and she gave him the part, like gave him the music, and he goes, I don't play those notes.
oh
And she
no.
went, well, what notes do you play? Because he was on the spectrum. So she said, because I don't like those notes. I don't play them. Okay. What notes do you play? So she had to rewrite it. So he played, like, God bless his little soul. She was able to get him to do something, but he obviously didn't play a lot because he only liked certain notes. So that's all he played.
What are you gonna do?
That's right. And
And I
again,
mean,
it comes back to him.
when the goal is like enjoyment and
That's
not
right.
like you're going to be a professional, that's what you do.
That's right. And look, it meant that, this kid who struggled to be a part of anything, his parents were so proud of him because he was actually part of a group and actually was, and again, it comes back to that being a good human, those life skills in terms of what is amazing for them. And as I said, that kid will remember that forever. I've remembered it because I didn't even have to teach it, but
Yeah,
this kid didn't like playing those notes. So,
absolutely. And
oh
so, I mean,
dear.
you find ways to like to get them involved in a way that they can do it.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's worse when you have kids just sit there and stare at you and
Hmm.
you can't engage them at all, and but they're still there.
That's right. Just taking up a bit of breathing room. Yeah, yeah. We won't. Yeah, yes. I know what you're saying. Um, let's change tact a little bit. What is your favorite lesson, music lesson, or concept, musical concept to teach and why?
Ooh,
I know this is a tough one.
that's good. I mean, I think I really just enjoy history.
Yep,
But if I had to go beyond history, I mean, I am much more comfortable teaching rhythms.
yep,
I like teaching rhythms with different speech patterns, different body percussion, games, composition activities. I'm very comfortable with that. I am less comfortable with pitch. Um, I learned I learned in grad school that I might know the right solfege
yes,
like pitches and syllables, and I might know the intervals, but somehow from the beginning note to the ending note, I modulate into B flat. Like
is that your
I've just
clarinet
played,
brain?
I've played clarinet for so long that a C is not a C.
Yes,
So, and so, I went to sightseeing with the professor a couple times, and it took, I think, 4 times through where I'd start on the right pitch and I'd get to the last one and he'd hit the piano keyboard and he'd go, "What happened?" And
yeah,
he just sort of like looked at me and looked at them and he's like, "I don't know what just happened." And so then we try again and we tried again. And finally he was like, "I think I know." And
yep,
so I was just transposing
yep,
like micro pitches every
yeah.
single note until I got into my B flat.
Wow. But that makes so much sense to me. Like I totally understand because as you say, when you're reading a C, it's not a C. You know, it does my head in. I like I
And when you
yeah,
hear that for 25 years,
yeah,
that's what you hear as C.
yes, yes, yeah. I get it. I get it. And it's funny, like I've never come across a kid yet who actually has perfect pitch. And they, you know, I know a few kids go, "Oh, I really want it." I said, "No, you don't." I said, "You want to have that the words escape me."
Relative.
That's it, relative pitch.
Yeah.
Because, you know, because I don't care what key I'm in, I can always find that tonic note. I can always
Yes.
find it. And, you know, and so I don't care if someone's transposed it. I'm forever transposing it as a guitarist. I hate playing anything in flats, anything.
Ooh.
So, you know, and I'm generally only playing rhythm these days. I don't do anything else, fancy. So I'm forever putting like if I see it's in E flat, all that capo's going on that first fret, I can guarantee you, and I'm playing it in D because I'm not playing it in E flat. I'm just not doing that. So I get what you're saying, but yeah, it's obviously your brain and everything does that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What's one of your most memorable teaching moments that you'd like to share?
Oh. I mean, I think one of the things that I have remembered for, oh, it's gotta be 15 years now. Um, and it's silly. It has nothing real. Well, there's a couple of things. One of the ones is with my gifted and talented class. I love them. They didn't have a special if it wasn't for me. And so I
Yep.
saw them every day for 3 years
Wow.
because it was sixth through eighth grade. So you really develop a bond. And every year I would create a new theme for the year. And so one year we were composing.
Yep.
And at one point we're ear training and talking about, the differences between major and minor and why they're equally important. And one of them said, "But we don't get it. Like, why would anybody want minor?" And I looked at them, and without really thinking too hard, I just started like,
Yep.
word vomit. And I was like, "Well, if you never had minor, how would you know that your majors are happy? Like, you
Yes.
need the
Yes.
minor in your life and the sad things to happen to you and the things that you feel that aren't good, so that when you do have those good things, that they're even better."
Yes.
And I kind of was like talking to the whiteboard because I was moving around the
Yep.
room, and I turned around and they all went, "That was deep." And then I walked into the classroom because I had forgotten something on a cart. I walked in later on in the day and I see like you need minor to make your majors happier written on the board. It was like
Oh,
their thought of the day.
oh, that is beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, you guys.
Yeah.
But in the same school, I was teaching recorder to fifth grade, and they had already had recorder in fourth grade, so this was just expanding. Um, but they didn't really understand the history
Yep.
or the reason or
Yep.
anything about the recorder. And so I was like, well, let's think about this here. It's the Renaissance. What do we know about the Renaissance? Not much. I
Yep.
was like, well, you played instruments because it was entertainment and it's what you had to do. Like we didn't
Mm.
have TV or
Mm-hmm.
movies or cars or computers or phones. And I'm like listing everything.
Yep.
And the homeroom teacher in the back was a science and social studies nerd too. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of class, I had a little fifth grader follow me out into the hall as I was trying to leave. And she goes, Mrs. Angstadt, like, not even the black and white ones? And I was like, ooh, like, I was like,
Oh.
no, sweetie, not even the black and white ones. And you can't laugh, but at the same time, you're just thinking, ooh, that was great.
That's just beautiful. But as I said, just out of the mouth of babes, some of them, isn't it? It really is. And yeah, yeah. And it just brings it home so many things. And I think again, as a music teacher, we get to see so many beautiful things about our kids that the normal teacher doesn't always get to see because
Yeah.
we see them in a very different light. Yeah.
And we get them year after year after year.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like we get this
Yes.
like it might be a snapshot of a year, but we get to grow with them every year.
Yes.
Whereas, a classroom teacher, it's like 1 year and then they're
Yeah.
moved on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had another great memory this year as a sub. And like as a sub, I really tried to put up some barriers. Like I don't want to get attached to these kids
Yeah.
because that's hard when you have to
Yeah.
let them go.
Yeah.
Um, and so I tried really hard, not very successfully. And at the end of the year, I was hearing a lot of, well, Mrs. Angstadt, can you come back? Can you come back? Can you
Yeah.
come back? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't have that power.
Yeah.
Uh, and I kind of thought it was weird. And I said, well, would you want me back? Like,
Yeah.
like really? And one of the juniors said, Mrs. Angstadt, I kind of wanted to go into music ed before. Like our band
Right.
director, like I loved what she did. And but I was on the fence. But now after meeting you, like I really want to do it. And I
Oh,
kind of was like, what? Like,
wow.
oh, that's all the feels, And
Yeah.
and after like 6 months.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we have this impact on kids and their memory. I remember, I think nearly every music teacher I've had, some for good reasons, some for bad. But the same deal. It's yeah,
Oh,
we do have a very big impact on our kids. I think more so than sometimes as you say, their classroom teacher. So I really love it that where I teach, I do see them in year seven. We don't see them in year eight. But if they pick up music in 9, 10, 11, 12, I've got them the whole time. So I get to see their development
oh,
from year
wow.
seven through. And like my year 10 boys that I've got now, I had them in year seven. I didn't have them last year because I'd taken a year off. But to see their musical development, I remember them sitting in year seven playing ukulele. These kids are 6'5". Like they're so tall, it's not funny. And I'm 5 foot. And I have to say to them, sit down. I need to talk to you. So sit down so I can look at you. But it's like, guys, but I remember them playing ukulele and I remember the spark, and they have gone on to, like, they're metal guitarists, like they're just amazing. But anyway, yeah, as you say, we just get to see
I
some
mean,
beautiful things.
the kids just it's so great just to see that development.
Yeah,
And to have that bond, and even if you change schools,
yeah.
like you carry on with that.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And it's again, you sort of don't know the impacts. Again, so as I said, I've just had a very big end of term, and yesterday was what we call our pink day. So pink day is a day where the kids all come in pink. They're crazy. It was last day of term, and they obviously get awards for being best dressed in pink and whatever else, but it's raising money for breast cancer. So, there's bake sale, there's, a sausage sizzle. I'm not sure if that's a real big thing in the States, but it certainly is here in
Nope.
Australia. So
I've never heard of it, but it sounds fascinating.
okay, so I'll just explain. A sausage sizzle literally is, well, we call them a sausage sanger. So it's just a sausage on a barbecue, and on bread. That's it.
I mean, I'd be okay with this. This,
It's
this sounds wonderful.
and just usually, I mean, we call it sauce, tomato sauce. You call it ketchup, but that's, it's tomato or barbecue sauce. That's it. So, but it's a,
Ooh.
nice way to end the term. But anyway, so for what we were doing though is had to supply the music, obviously a concert. So we had our kids performing, and we had three bands performing. They did a great job. And I was running up to the staff room because I hadn't been to the bathroom all day. You know that feeling. It's like, I've got
Always,
to go. I have just, I'm
always.
running, running up. And anyway, I'm coming back down, and one of my kids, who I haven't seen since year seven, like I haven't seen this kid since year seven, and he stopped me. He said, "Miss, hi, sweetheart, how are you?" He goes, "Did you organise that today?" I said, "No, darling, it's always a team. There's a lot of people that are involved in getting this. It's, doesn't magically appear on stage, all that stuff. And, it just doesn't do that." He goes, "Can I just say thank you?" I said, "What for?" He said, "That was the best concert we've seen in ages. That was awesome. Thank you so
Aw.
much for doing that." And I said, "This is a year 11 kid I haven't seen since year
Aw.
seven." I was like, "Oh, darling, thank you." And made my day.
Yeah.
And then we went to pack it up.
Never
So
ending.
never ending, never ending. So I'm going to do five quick questions, and then we'll talk about the
Okay.
conference. This has been lovely chatting to you, but all right, five quick questions. What's your favorite go-to restaurant?
Ooh, go-to restaurant. So we try to avoid like fast
Yep.
restaurants. So there's a local place in Ann Arbor called Union Rec, and it's sort of like a barbecue meets South American food fusion.
Oh,
Um, it's very bizarre, but so good. And they have coffee too. So like,
tick, tick.
it because it's not an American barbecue
Yep.
in that sense, but at the same time, like they've got pulled pork. It's
Yep.
just got different spices to it, and their sauces are based on South American flavors. So you might get
Mm,
a little more tropical things. And I mean,
yum.
they had me from the moment they opened.
Wow. Yeah, sounds good. I said the way the Americans do barbecue, and obviously it depends on where you are in America.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's
What
regional.
part of the US you are, how barbecue is done. But yeah, when I was in Nashville for the conference in 2018, we were advised to go to this. It was what I call a dodgy looking place. Like
The
walking
dodgier,
in
the
like,
better.
oh, and behind us, like I was with my daughter, and behind us was this whole bikie gang behind us, like, okay, but it was the best food ever. Like, it was just the best food.
I mean,
Anyway,
there's something about barbecue that's
mm,
just amazing.
it is, yeah, it was, yeah. So as I said, barbecue to us is slightly different, but it's certainly more of what we'd call grilled meats. But it's, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's a whole other
Versus the
conversation.
smoking and
What are you currently binge watching? Because you're on summer break, so what are you binge watching?
okay, I'm kind of lame. I love a good mystery show and I love just cozy feel good things. So um when my kids are awake, I binge watch the Great British Bake Off because it's just so wholesome. Like
Yeah,
no one ever tries to like tamper with other people's things.
yep,
It's
yep,
just
yep,
so lovely
yep,
versus like, American cooking competitions are like Cutthroat Kitchen and
yeah, yeah,
Sabotage this and
yeah,
like
yeah.
I just like that camaraderie. Um, but like I finished watching all of the Murder She Wrote seasons because I loved it. Like and I've watched all of Columbo and I've watched all of
Yep.
Perry Mason.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You
Like
are going old school
I
there.
I mean my husband likes to laugh. He definitely says like, "Well, you've got to type." And I said, "I certainly do." Bookstores, movies, TV shows, a good mystery is even board games. Like, give me a
Yeah.
clue any day.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, what we need to finish watching the Only Murders in the Building
Oh,
show. We watched a few seasons of it, and then um, we haven't gotten back to it. And that was another great,
okay.
like,
I don't know that
funny
one.
mystery. Steve Martin and Selena Gomez and Martin Short,
Oh,
and then
good
Nathan
cast.
Lane was in it for a little bit, and I mean, it's just fabulous.
Okay. I'll have to look at that one. So I've got a bit of a hint for the next question. What are you currently reading then?
I found a really great series by accident. We had a local bookstore shop hop essentially. So we went to different bookstores in the area and we don't walk out without something. And so I found a book series that is so weird. Um the author writes, it's sort of like historical fiction mystery. And so the current series is the Phillida Bright mystery series, and Phillida is the housekeeper of Agatha Christie. And
Ah,
so
right.
Agatha Christie is a character, but not really, it's not based on actual things.
Yep.
And so the current one, the housekeeper stumbled across a murdered body in the Christie's library.
Right.
And so now it's kind of, well, she's portraying that she doesn't trust the detective to do his job.
Yep.
And so she's sort of taking over just like any good Agatha Christie person would do. Um, and so it was funny because I initially saw this, just the book cover and went, ooh, there's a typewriter on it and it says mystery. This is all up my alley. And I picked it up and I bought it. And then I got home and realized it's actually the third book in the series. And
Ah,
I can't read them out of order. So I
right.
had to go buy the first two. So, so that's my current bit.
Right. I get it. I totally get it. It's obviously your summer holidays. So what is your perfect summer holiday day?
Um, I wish my kids would agree with this, but like not waking up early. Um, enjoying some coffee. Just I'll drink hot coffee in the morning and then switch to iced coffee as the day goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Thankfully, I get to do a lot of crafting and playing with the kids. So, both of my kids have gotten into needlework and clay and stuff. So, my daughter and I will crochet for a while. We read for a while. I play with the cat. But just very lazy. I
Yep.
get to tend to my porch garden. Um, I'm very low fuss, low muss. I don't want to go places unless I get stir crazy and I want to go, but for the most part, I'm happy to just hang out and do my
Mm-hmm.
like nothing.
Sounds so familiar. Okay. What's your favorite snack?
Um, mm,
Oh.
so chocolate, like dark, dark chocolate. The darker the better.
Yep.
We've done chocolate tastings and it's bizarre how I'll be like, oh, that 97% chocolate was just amazing.
Yep.
And then, somebody will hand you like a store, candy bar, and you're like, these are so sweet, they're rotting my teeth. I
Yep. Yep.
just pure chocolate. And if it could be like covered or an espresso bean covered, like that's even better. Like just the dark and the bitter and the crunch. I could munch on it all day.
Yeah, I'm an 85% dark chocolate Lindt person myself. That's my
Ooh,
go-to. Yeah, I love my
mint.
Lindt chocolate.
Oh,
Yes.
the Lint
Lindt,
brand.
Lindt brand.
That's actually
Yeah.
what my high schoolers gave me as my gift at
Yeah.
the concert.
Yeah, 85% one. That's my go-to. I'd find the 90% too bitter.
A
And
little
I
bit too much.
yeah, too much. And the 70% is too sweet. But the 85 is just my little
I
sweet
mean,
spot.
I think the
Yeah.
85 is great. I've gotten into like specialty like small bean to bar people.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And I love when they do like a crunch to it, like a sugar crunch
Mm-hmm.
or like a
Mm-hmm.
salted caramel
Mm-hmm.
in chocolate. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
just something magical about it
Mm-hmm.
when it's not too
Yeah.
much. And it's the same way with coffee. Like I don't need the syrups and stuff, but I've found that if you just sprinkle a little salt, it brings out the sweetness of the
Yep.
bitter coffee and
Yep.
it's magic.
Yep. Yep. Yes. Yes. I agree. I agree. Alrighty. Look, we're nearly there. So we've got an upcoming virtual conference, which is almost just over a week
2 weeks.
away, really. You're 2 weeks
Two
away. That's
weeks.
it. 2 weeks away. So, what are you actually doing in your session?
I am sharing a few ideas that you could make or make with your students that are rhythmic percussion instruments. for a various, purposes. Maybe like me, you have a classroom and no budget.
Yeah.
And so what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, I had no supplies and no budget. Maybe you found this really great activity, but it requires this random instrument that you're never going to use for any other activity. So,
Yeah.
like, can you justify buying it, or can you find a workaround to make
Yeah.
it? Um, so I've been making instruments and enlisting my husband to help make some instruments. And so we've got three instruments that I'll walk you through. Some of them more low cost than others.
Yep.
Um, but whether you're making it with students or for students or really just for yourself because you're crafty and why
Yep.
not?
Yep.
um how to get the supplies, how to do it. We'll do three instruments, and then share a few my ideas of other things that you could make with you know mm, sort of instructions, but not really.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
just a basic, like, well, maybe you could try this.
Yep. Yeah,
Should
I love
work.
it. I love it. So obviously my next question was going to be what motivated you to choose this topic, but we've sort of talked about it, haven't we? So often as music teachers, our budget is this big. And so we've got to make it stretch to this far. And how do we do that?
Yes.
So,
My
yeah.
first year teaching, I had 17 cents per student,
And
which
how
is
many
not even
kids?
enough for a pencil.
I was going to
17
say,
cents.
how many kids did you have?
I had kindergarten through eighth grade in two
Right,
buildings.
right, right. But
So
still,
I think about each building, it was probably $115. And
okay,
then
can't even buy
they
a
had no
guitar for that,
supplies.
you know?
They had no supplies whatsoever, not even a radio. And I was told not to really buy anything because they tend to walk off.
Right.
So what do you do in that
Yeah,
situation?
that's right. Yeah.
Um, I made drums.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So there's only so much body percussion and singing you can do, you know.
yeah, especially when you have kids that don't want to sing. It's like
That's
those
right.
seventh and eighth graders, if they don't want to sing,
No,
it doesn't matter what you pick for them, they're not doing it.
that's right. That's right. I hear you, darling. I hear you. So obviously I think again you've sort of talked about it and how will this benefit music educators who attend. So what is the main thing they're going to get out of this, out of your session?
I mean, I'm hoping that they get the idea that they're not limited to what you can buy in a catalog,
Yeah.
and that they're not limited to like what they have.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways you can work around what a composer says you should be doing,
Yes.
or what limited funds you have. I mean,
Yeah.
we're creative people. This is
Yeah.
who we are. And just especially for when you're first starting out and you don't know,
Yeah.
like, you don't know what you're walking into your first year.
Yes.
Just have hope and understanding that you can do this on your own. And
Yeah.
some of these things do not even require a lot of crafting skills.
Yes. 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 I mean, our favorite go-to, especially here in Australia, because it's very is our clap sticks. And I know, clave, but Aboriginal
Yeah,
clap
yeah.
sticks, they're just two pieces of wood. And I'll used to do that a lot with my inclusive ed kids or special ed kids. And we'd paint them. I just give them a couple of bits of dowel and we'd paint them. And again, it's those sort of skills and then we'd obviously use them, whether you call them rhythm sticks or whatever. But yeah, it's again simple. I remember one kid, he did it as an assignment and he cut up because it had the most beautiful sound. I said, "Where on earth did you get that wood?" And because I as an assignment, and he said, "Oh, I cut up a broom." And I went, "Did your family know?"
Are
Because it
they
was
okay with
really,
it?
do they know? It's beautiful sound. But
Well,
yeah, yeah,
and I think sometimes we do projects that are like, well, we've talked about the science of sound, and so now we want you to create your own, like,
yes,
what do you have and how could you do it?
yeah,
But yet we don't really give them that experience of, let's do this first as an example
yes,
together.
yes,
And
yes,
and so I mean, like, I'm gonna show a frame drum
yep,
that
yep,
uses some unconventional materials. We're gonna talk about wind chimes that are so simple to put together.
Yeah.
I did a band piece this year that was supposed to have two sets of wind chimes. I didn't have two sets of wind chimes. I had
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So, how do you quickly come up with an
Yeah.
alternative?
Yeah.
And then the last one is a little bit of a stretch. We're making a cajon
Oh, oh,
because, I've looked into buying them and I've gone, mm,
yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that would eat up most of my budget. Is there a
Yes.
way that I could do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's ways to source the materials
Yeah.
if you have friends or the skills and the know-how. It's not so bad.
No. Yeah. 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 I love I call them a box drum. Yeah, the kids love them. They love them. Well, it's been lovely talking to you. So, where can people actually find you on social media so they can get more updates about you?
I am on Facebook and Instagram for as musical interactions. Um, I do have an email newsletter as well, but those are my two main platforms.
Yep.
I try to keep up to date.
Yeah. Oh,
Sometimes life gets in the way.
life has gotten in the way big time for me, but anyway, this year, I'm hoping the second half is much nicer than the first. So
Yes.
you obviously have a Teachers Pay Teachers store. So again, can you tell us what the name of that is, so that and what kind of resources music teachers can find there?
So my store is also musical interactions, and most of the resources in there are actually twists on classic games
Hmm.
so that they are more music concept based. So there's like Crazy Eights or Rummy or um like a Candyland version or a Guess Who type style
Yep.
game
Yep.
and Battleship. Like these classic games that I grew up playing because
Yep.
I mean, we just love playing games. Um, that was what we did for entertainment growing up. And so when we can do that, uh, and bring it into the classroom, it's not the same old like lecture style, and it gives them opportunities to manipulate.
Yep.
I've got some puzzles, and I mean, I just love games. So
Yeah.
really, it's pretty much games, full class, small group, centers. I'm
Basically, you've got every idea covered so that people, if they want something different for their kids, to, as you say, to have a different approach to teach something or to reinforce the learning, you've got a game for them. Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been so lovely talking
yes.
to you, Melissa, and I can't wait to see your
It was
session.
lovely
And
talking to you.
yeah, and I can't wait to actually see how you make this box drum, because I could do with a few more in my classroom too.
I mean, it's fascinating.
It is. It is. So thank you again. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
No-